Welcome to the Happy Dog Podcast. This podcast is designed to bring you ideas and uplifting information to help you live a meaningful and fulfilled life with your dog from a holistic perspective. Now, let's explore the world of a happy dog. Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Happy Dog Podcast. Today, I have my dear friend Caroline Griffith on the show, and I can't wait to tell you all about her. So, as many of you might know, I journeyed to Boulder, Colorado last year for the Canine Flow retreat, and that was all held by Caroline. And we had an amazing time. I learned so much from her and from the other people that attended. And of course, our biggest teachers were the dogs. So Caroline is a yoga teacher, a meditation facilitator, a hypnotherapist. She's a dog trainer and behavior specialist, an energy healer, and she's a nutritional therapist. She is, of course, the founder of Canine Flow and Canine Connection Retreats. And to say that she has a lot going on and has a lot attached to her name is an understatement. She has also written books. She's pioneered the Canine Flow dog training program. There are so many places to start with her, and I'm guessing we'll do more than one podcast, but I want to start with the basics. So welcome, Caroline. Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm so excited to do this.
So let's talk about how you got started in the world of dogs.
In terms of professional, it was when I left school and I really wanted to work with dogs. So I phoned almost every kennel that we had in our book. It's called the Yellow Pages. We didn't have the internet back then so well, not in the way we do now. So I phoned up until one of them gave me a job. And just started working at kennels and cattery. And I was really already, I think, being guided on my journey because the lady that had taken me on, she would raw feed her dogs, which I'm talking like more than 25 years ago. It was super pioneering back then to do this. And she would no-sode her dogs instead of vaccinate. She's a breeder of Pyrenean mountain dogs and Lhasa Apsos, as well as having the holiday kennels and cattery. And I just learned so much from being there. I worked there for over 20 years and I literally was able to witness the transformation of different dogs and cats when they move on to either using natural therapies for different ailments or just switching their diet and the difference that you get from switching diet. Or using something like homeopathy, that just completely, and maybe one day I'll write a book about this with all my different stories. I sometimes look back at my books because, of course, we had traditional cameras back then as well, no phone cameras, and I've got heaps of like books where I've stuck in the dog's photo and I've written its name, and just so many stories of transformation that I literally saw with my own eyes. So, really it led me down the path of wanting to learn more about why was this happening and how was it happening. And that's how it all began. And my interest was sparked. And I just went on course after course, workshop after workshop, and really started to grow.
How did that start with the spiritual, working with dogs from a spiritual and energetic standpoint? Did that start back when you were working in the kennels, or how did that kind of come about?
It did from the point of view as I learned energy healing and different aspects of energy healing. But it sparked me off. I remember hearing somebody on the radio talking about how they could send homeopathic remedies over the radio, frequency based. And that really started me down the path of understanding like quantum energy and what is actually going on behind the scenes, if you like.
Right.
And that really then led me down more of a path to understand how we're all made of energy and why we say we're all made of energy and what that means, which then, of course, led me down the path of our dogs being an energy being and our dogs expressing energy. So, in terms of their behavior, they're literally expressing their energy when they behave. That it's not really something that they're about doing as such. It's something that has to happen because this energy has come up in them. And we're just the same, actually, but we often override with our mind. So I guess it started when I learned that, and then over a period of time, it was like putting all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together. And 11 years ago, I started running retreats for dogs and owners. And they're still the only retreats, spiritual retreats for dogs and owners in the world, because we're truly spiritual. So we don't talk about things like control and obedience, because those things actually are restrictive and limiting, and they come from a place of fear ultimately rather than a place of love. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to think, like everything kind of merges together now. Now all the
Yeah.
pieces of the puzzle are together. It's difficult for me to think of which bit came first. But I do remember when I learned to be a hypnotherapist, of course, the first thing I wondered, as I do with everything I learn, is does this work on dogs and how and why would it work on them? So I remember my poor hypnotherapy teacher, she had a little Jack Russell called Poppy, and I said, please, can I see if it works on Poppy? You know, there we were getting trained in this, and I wanted to practice on her dog, you know, and she laughed and said, well, why not? So I did, and it did. It worked in terms of it appeared that the dog had been taken into trance, and obviously we brought her back out again. And I then tried it with a friend's dog to see if I could make shifts in their behaviour, and I was able to. So that was like a big pivotal point for me, that I was able to influence them at an emotional level, because I knew I wasn't working with their mind. I knew I wasn't imprinting ideas as a traditional hypnotherapist might do with a person. Say, for instance, somebody wants to stop smoking and they go to see a hypnotherapist, and they might have suggestions put into their mind. But I knew that that wasn't the case with dogs. So it really brought me back to this understanding about energy flow. So, you know, in terms of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, it was like everything came back to the fact that we're made of energy, but we're not just made of energy, we're made of flowing, moving energy. And the issues arise when there's a restriction or a limitation. So really, essentially, whenever we move away from feeling love, we begin to have some kind of restriction. And this is all, or predominantly all, happening subconsciously. And we only really become aware of it when it makes such an impact that we become conscious of it. And it's often at that level that we're trying to work with our dogs, when in reality, when we work with this at the subconscious level of the energy of the situation, the energy of the dog, and the energy of the owner, all three are part of it, we can actually make bigger shifts and more lasting shifts and greater transformations that will continue on, rather than just being, we fix this situation or we fix this problem for now. This is something that makes greater shifts for the owner and the dog long term, and really reconnects them back to source, which is so, so important. And it gives massively wonderful coping strategies that for the people and the dogs, for every part of their life, you know, health, wealth, career, their relationships, everything becomes stronger and easier and more effortless when you just work with dogs.
Right. No, definitely. And so, you know, we as energetic beings ourselves might not realize that at the end of the day is what we are and what our dogs are. And I feel like it's something that we almost take advantage of because we don't really think about life and ourselves this way, in a sense, you know. And when it comes to our dogs too, because you know, behavior and behaving well and dog training is all something that is drilled into a lot of us. So, can you tell me?
Yes.
I know you definitely just went over really great information in terms of energy and things like that, but like from a fundamental basis, from someone who doesn't know
Mm,
anything about it, let's say, like, how would you
okay.
explain energy
Hmm.
fields that our dogs have? And yeah, let's
Okay.
start there, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We'll simplify it a bit. So essentially, what we're dealing with is like a life force flow. It's a
Hmm.
vitality. It's the cells are vibrating with life force flow, and when your dog does an action, it's an expression of that life force flow. You're never going to get rid of that. All this about do you know? I take so little notice of dog training. I forget the terms they use, but there's like self in. Is it self? There's self control. There's another word that people use. I don't know if it's inhibition, but it's in essentially it's impulse. They want to
Yeah.
stop impulses.
Well,
Like
it's impulse
this is
control,
your
I would say, is what
dog.
is like the term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like this is because your dog has this life force flow. It wants to express itself. We need to be honoring that and allowing them to express their life force into flow so that it's not kept as a charge, what I would call a charge that is then in the body. Because what we will find is they will express that charge if we limit it in a different way, one that may even be more challenging for us to cope with than the way they
Hmm.
were trying to express it in the first place. So that could happen, but also it can get stuck in their cells and become cellular memory, and it can become an ailment or a well-being issue if they're unable to express this emotional life force flow. So we sort of see it as a flow of energy, hence why I call it canine flow.
Yeah.
And when you has a block to its flow of energy, whether that's because we have asked them to with a limitation or a strong command that we've kind of ordered them not to do consistently, so we might have inadvertently created a limitation to their flow, or it could be for any number of other reasons. They may have a physical trait which influences their life force flow. Their diet might be a certain way that's influencing their life force flow or restricting it. There's so many different things when you actually learn canine flow that you get to look at,
Hmm.
so that you can put again pieces of the puzzle together when you're with somebody and their dog, so that you can really pinpoint what it might be that's limiting the dog from expressing themselves. And we have, of course, wonderful ways that we encourage the dogs to express themselves that are safe and that the dogs really want to do and that work better, and there's
Hmm.
certain breeds that need certain different ways. So collies, for instance, would be using a different way of expressing themselves than a lurcher, for instance, and that
Hmm.
so we can be breed specific as well. But yeah, it's really about understanding how your dog is expressing themselves and this flow of energy.
And you know when you brought up impulse control and like behavior control and things like that. So
Mhm.
talk a little bit about then if somebody is listening and probably asking, well, what if a dog's biting or a dog wants to attack another dog, or you know how would then
Yeah.
you say that behavior should be dealt with, I guess, because it's, we don't want
Mhm.
like dogs attacking other dogs or humans
Of
for that
course.
matter.
I'd say that there's going to be way more going on for that dog than just this one incident when they did that. Like
Mhm.
something will be going on in terms of whoever their care or guardian is not noticing clues about them.
Mhm.
They obviously have a strong charge in their system, so they need ways to express themselves without doing those behaviors, because a dog primarily will express its charge through its mouth. So the bigger the charge inside them, the more likely they're going to use very strong expressions of their mouth. The smaller the charge inside them, they might just make sound or vocal noises. They might just lick. They might just lick their lips, or most of the things they do are related to their mouth. Not all, but most of them are. So we don't need to actually be teaching them things like the impulse control. We need to be looking at what else is going on behind that behavior ethically,
Mm-hmm.
and teaching them that way. And I guess it depends on the situation that the dog is in, because it's more difficult to do when they're perhaps in like a rescue or a shelter situation and they're trying to kind of rehab them in order to say this is a calm, safe dog to rehome.
Right.
It's easy to do that in an owner situation because you've got some stability, you've got some things are going to be the same, some things are going to be consistently adjustable in terms of the energetic frequencies around the dog and what the dog's able to do. But I guess it depends on the dedication of the people in a rescue centre.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And what ultimately made you pair energy work with like dog training? Because that's kind of what you have done in a sense. Like, so
Mm.
what were things that you saw when you worked at a kennel with regards to dog training that
Mm.
you wanted to change, or that you thought, well, energy work could take care of something like this more than a choke collar or whatever it might be?
Yeah, well, it was a gradual thing really, and I was blessed to be running the retreats because people were coming on the retreats that were already spiritually minded. So when I said to them, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to try this, it's all such kind, positive, calm, peaceful methods that there's no reason not to try it. And
Mm-hmm.
then we were getting results. So then I was like, okay, so my hunches are pretty cool. And then few years later, I got given a book, in fact, on one of my retreats by a guy called Kevin Dehan. And whilst I didn't like at the time, I've been told he's changed things now, but at the time I didn't like the way he was encouraged dogs to express their emotional charge. I loved the theory. I mean, that book is like one of my favorite books ever, and it's like so dog-eared, to
And you're
coin the phrase.
talking about
But
the book, that's the Your Dog is Your Mirror book, right?
that's the one. Yeah, your
Mm-hmm.
dog is your mirror, and it was like reading the book that I wished I'd written, or I still might write. But it's very, yeah, it's quite it's
Yeah.
quite technical, but it really gave me validation that I was not the only person out there feeling the way I did about why dogs were behaving. And I was like, wow, like somebody totally believes this. They've written a whole book on it.
Well, and the way that, you're talking about with the way dogs are reacting and or behaving rather, or expressing themselves, with regard to like this book, and the validation you got was really about how our human energy completely kind of dictates what our dog's energy might be, or their
Yeah.
patterns or things like that, is what you're saying.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. And
So, well, yeah, basically, there is two ways of looking at it because you can work with the dog as well,
mm-hmm.
which is why you could this kind of work with shelter dogs or dogs that don't have a particular one owner. But when they're in a partnership, when they've met their soul human and the humans met their soul dog, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes such an electromagnetic connection. I mean, the heart of dog is the biggest heart per body mass of any animal on the planet. So they are in front of us for a very good reason. They are literally magnetized to be in front of us, and we are literally like magnets towards them because of the strong heart energy that we both share. So yeah, we take on our dog takes on us, we become as one. And what we don't realize is that our subconscious energy is continually influencing our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
some of us may have realized, but we say, oh, I'm anxious, my dog gets anxious. Like that's like a no-brainer. Most people can realize that. That's
Completely.
like a totally like a conscious awareness. How to change it, having the support and the tools to change that at the subconscious level, that's what was missing for me. So that's what I've created with Canine Flow.
Yeah, one of my favorite, you know, in talking to dog owners and things like that, is one of my favorite, I guess, examples is I feel like people, a lot of dog owners or parents or whatever you want to call them, are always saying, well, I just wish I had this with my dog, or I just wish my dog was like this, totally different than what they are, instead of just accepting who they are. And I feel like it's a lot of times because the person is dealing with, acceptance issues themselves almost, and accepting themselves
Mhm.
and rejecting basically what their dog is and not being okay with it for whatever reason. And it's just very interesting when you look at people who want their dogs to be a certain way, or want to do certain things with their dog, and that dog has no interest in it because that dog is like, no, I am this way, and you can't change me. It's like, I love those dogs because it's like, just accept them, accept yourself and accept them, and this is the type of dog you have.
I guess, and we'll see this show up in different people's ways. Yeah, especially like now you're learning more about it. I guess you'll see it show up in
Hmm.
different ways. And yeah, it does kind of make you sort of think, oh, that, like, yeah, I can so see that now. I can see how they're reflecting each other, and they don't even realize, or the owner doesn't realize. Of course, the dog knows full well,
Yes, well,
but the
I
owner
mean,
hasn't connected yet.
and a perfect example is myself and Izzy, and on the retreat. And what was Izzy doing the whole time? She's always busy and looking around and needing to do something, blah 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 blah. And I definitely have that type of a mind where if I'm like not doing something, I'm sitting here thinking I need to be doing something. If I'm not doing something, I'm basically, like failing at today, and I need to be doing something. I need to be doing something. And what is Izzy doing? Constantly, I need to be doing something. That's all she
Mhm.
does. So it's just so, and I didn't even think about it really until it was pointed out at the retreat, and I was like, oh my God, I've created poor Izzy. I've created
Wow.
her wanting to do
No,
things
no.
and not settle. And then I
Well,
always
you haven't.
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I like, we definitely can't blame ourselves, or
No, I'm
like,
not
in the
blaming
sense.
myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just
Good.
so
Because
funny.
all.
And now uh, I also, my husband Jeff always says this. He's Because I'll be like, I wish Izzy would come cuddle with me, and she'll always go in the other room and be independent. He's like, look at how you are. You always need like your alone time, and you go off on your own. And I'm like, oh gosh, again, I know. But it just takes me back to like, you know, stop worrying so much about it. You know what I mean? Like, let this dog be,
Mm,
and you can change yourself to make them feel, or change your energy to make them feel more at ease, or just accept it
yeah,
almost. So,
yeah.
using
And,
myself
and
as an example.
oh, yeah, well, this is fantastic. I mean, on the retreat, that's another observation, is that Izzy's constant using her nose, which is mouth area, so it's still emotional, limbic system related. She was really using that a lot. She
Hmm.
was just like into everything, and she was constantly going around the big food area as well, and like
Hmm.
from one person to another. And like, this was an emotional release for her. She was
Hmm.
expressing while she was doing that, because you were somewhere new. There was elements of, oh God, when am I going to have to talk?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
when am I
and
going to
I
have
get
to do this?
anxiety traveling in new places so easily. I mean,
Okay.
that's just me. So, that's where like
Yeah.
I have like that squirrel brain of just like, what's going on over here? What's over here? Blah 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 blah. Because I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm nervous about it and feel like I need to be doing something
Yeah.
almost.
So yeah, there was the reflection, but there was also her expressing for you,
Mm-hmm.
because what the beauty of dogs are with us, and this is just it gets me every time, because seriously, they're here for us. It's like they're here for us, and they will balance us. They will magnetically balance us. They will balance our emotions. I mean, at the most basic level, we know that our dogs always know how we feel, and they're just so there for us. And it's like, it's so uncanny. Like, they don't even have to be in the same room and see us upset, and they'll know.
Right.
They'll come and find us, and they're here. They're here for us. They're seriously here for us. And when you find your soul dog, it's like they really see you, and
Mm-hmm.
they will balance you, and they will express themselves because they've picked up your emotion. So they're grounding you. You could almost say they're grounding you in that sense emotionally, which is just, it's just amazing that they're even here, that
I
we found
know.
each other. Dogs and humans found each other, and it's just beautiful, really.
Well, and yeah, using myself as an example again, those realizations just make me definitely balance out, because then I'm just thinking, okay, I don't need to be over worried about this or overthinking it, because again, that's what we as humans do. We just overthink it and our brain gets in the way, instead of just going with what actually feels right, and uh, so we get anxious and spiral out of control in our mind,
Mm-mm.
and it helps to, yeah, then see a dog who is confident in what she's doing and say, okay, I can be that way too, So you're right in that it's definitely a balancing measure for sure between dogs and humans.
Mm.
And do you have stories of other people who you've worked with that maybe sticks out in your mind
Mhm.
as like a success story or an ongoing success?
Okay, I'm going to stop us right there, and we will see you next time for part 2 of talking with Caroline Griffith, all about energetics and our dogs. And you will get to hear the examples she is about to talk about next week. Thanks for listening.